Welcome back, brothers and sisters, to another deep dive into the pages of ancient history. Picture this. The year is 1215. King John of England, notorious for his heavy taxes and military failures, has been pushing his kingdom to the brink of revolt. The barons had enough, leading to a standoff. Under the immense pressure of a full-blown baronial revolt, he seals a document that changes the course of history. It was the Magna Carta, a cornerstone in the history of human rights, placing clear limits on royal authority and laying down the law for everyone, king and commoner alike. Imagine being an English subject back then, witnessing this moment where the mighty king is, for the first time, being held accountable by law. It was a glimmer of hope, a step towards the freedoms we cherish today, more or less. The Magna Carta wasn't perfect by any means, and it was reissued and amended several times in the following years, each version refining the balance of power between the monarch and the people. And speaking of timeless stories, if you're keen on supporting the exploration of more such fascinating journeys, consider joining our community on Patreon. Your support helps us dig deeper and share more such intriguing tales. So, stay with us as we delve into the Magna Carta, the reluctant king, and the dawn of a new era in governance and civil rights. The Magna Carta, first edition, Anno 1215. I, John, by God's grace, King of England, Lord of Ireland, Duke of Normandy and Aquitaine and Count of Anjou, greets his archbishops, bishops, abbots, earls, barons, judges, foresters, sheriffs, stewards, servants, and all his officials and faithful subjects. Please be aware that we, motivated by our faith and the well-being of our soul, and that of our ancestors and heirs, in the honour of God and for the improvement of our kingdom, have taken counsel from esteemed advisers. These include Stephen, Archbishop of Canterbury and Cardinal of the Holy Roman Church, Henry, Archbishop of Dublin, William of London, Peter of Winchester, Jocelyn of Bath and Glastonbury, Hugh of Lincoln, Walter of Worcester, William of Coventry, Benedict of Rochester, bishops, Pandulf the Pope's subdeacon, Aymeric, leader of the Knights Templar in England, and notable men like William Marshall, Earl of Pembroke, and others. Firstly, we have assured that the English Church remains free and retains its rights and freedoms intact, for us and our heirs forever. This commitment is clear from our previous grant of election freedom, essential for the English Church, which we confirmed willingly before our disagreements with the barons. Pope Innocent III has endorsed this, and we, along with our heirs, are committed to upholding it in good faith. We also promise all free men in our kingdom and their heirs forever the liberties listed below to be held and enjoyed from us and our heirs. Now, about inheritance, if any earl, baron or knight who serves me dies, their kids who are old enough can take over without too much hassle. Here's how it works with the fees. If you're inheriting an earl's title, you pay £100, same for a baron. If you're a knight's heir, you pay up to £100, depending on what's usual for your situation. Basically, the fees depend on your rank, and we're sticking to the traditional way of doing things. If the heir of any such individual is underage and under guardianship, he should get his inheritance without any extra charges or fines when he reaches adulthood. The guardian of an underage heir's land should only take reasonable revenues, customary dues, and services from the land, and do so without causing damage or waste to the property or its people. If we assign the guardianship to a sheriff or someone else responsible for the land's income, and he causes damage or waste, we'll hold him accountable and compensate for it. Then the land will be entrusted to two lawful and discreet men from that territory who will manage the revenues responsibly. While he's in charge, the guardian must maintain the houses, parks, fish ponds, mills, and other relevant parts of the land using its revenues. When the heir reaches full age, he should be handed back his land, fully equipped with ploughs and farming equipment, in line with the farming season and what the land's income can reasonably support. Heirs should be married suitably. However, before the marriage is arranged, the relatives of the heir's family should be informed. After her husband's death, a widow should immediately and without difficulty receive her dowry and inheritance. She shouldn't have to pay anything for her dowry, her marriage rights, or the inheritance that she and her husband held at the time of his death. Also, she is entitled to stay in her husband's house for 40 days after his death, during which her dowry should be assigned to her. No widow should be forced to remarry if she chooses to live without a husband. However, she must assure that if she decides to remarry, she will do so only with our consent if she holds her land from us, or with the consent of her lord if she holds it from someone else. We or our bailiffs will not seize any land or rent for any debt, as long as the debtor's assets are sufficient to cover that debt. The debtor's guarantors should not be harassed as long as the primary debtor can pay the debt. If the primary debtor fails to pay and has nothing left, the guarantors should pay the debt. They can take control of the debtor's lands and rents until they are reimbursed for the debt they paid on his behalf, unless the primary debtor can prove he's settled the debt with them. If someone borrows money from the Jews, whether a lot or a little, and dies before paying it back, the debt will not accrue interest while the heir is underage, regardless of whom he holds his lands from. If the debt falls into our hands, we'll only take the amount stated in the written agreement. If someone dies owing money to the Jews, his widow should get her dowry and not have to pay any part of that debt. If the deceased's children are underage, their needs should be provided for in a manner suitable to the deceased's holdings. After that, the remaining debt should be paid, while ensuring the Lord's services are maintained. The same approach should be applied to debts owed to others besides Jews. No special tax or aid should be set in our kingdom without the general agreement of our kingdom's council, except for ransoming my person, knighting my eldest son, and the first marriage of my eldest daughter, and for these only a reasonable aid should be asked. The same rule applies to the City of London regarding aids. The City of London shall have all its ancient liberties and free customs, both on land and water. Furthermore, we want and grant that all other cities, boroughs, towns and ports should have all their liberties and free customs too. To decide on aid other than in the 3 cases mentioned above, or to set a special tax, we will send personal letters to summon archbishops, bishops, abbots, earls and major barons. We will also summon, through our sheriffs and bailiffs, all those who hold land directly from us to a specific place, giving at least 40 days' notice. The reason for the summons will be explained in the letters. The council meeting will proceed on the scheduled day according to the advice of those present, even if not everyone summoned can attend. From now on, we won't allow anyone to collect money from their free men unless it's for ransoming themselves, making their eldest son a knight, or marrying off their eldest daughter for the first time. And even for these, only a reasonable amount of aid should be asked for. No one should be forced to provide more rent or service for a knight's fee or any other free holding than what was originally agreed upon. Common legal cases should not follow our court around, but should be held in a specific, fixed place. Cases of recent unlawful dispossession, inheritance claims following a death, and disputes over who has the right to appoint a church priest should only be held in the county where they arise. To handle these, either I or my Chief Justice, if I am out of the country, will send 2 justices to each county 4 times a year. Along with 4 knights chosen by the county, these justices will hear the cases on the county court days and at the county court places. If the scheduled county court can't hold the previously mentioned legal cases on the appointed day, enough knights and free tenants who attended the court that day should stay there. They will help make judgments fairly, whether the case is big or small, based on who is available. A free man should not be heavily fined for a minor offence, but only according to the severity of the offence. The same goes for a merchant, keeping his goods safe, and a peasant, safeguarding his wagon. If they fall under our mercy, their fines should not be excessive and must be determined by the sworn testimony of honest people from the neighbourhood. Earls and barons should only be fined by their equals, and the fines should be proportional to the seriousness of the offence. A clergyman should be fined for his lay holdings just like others are fined, not based on the value of his ecclesiastical benefits. No town or person should be forced to maintain river bridges unless they have a long-standing legal obligation to do so. Our sheriffs, constables, coroners or other officials should not hold our Crown's legal hearings. All administrative divisions, including counties, hundreds, wapentakes and trythings, should remain at their old fixed payments to the throne without any increase, except for our own manor lands. When someone who rents land from us passes away and owed us money, our sheriff or bailiff will take a look at the movable property on that land. They'll make a list of these items and figure out their value, but only up to the amount of the debt the person owed. This process should be done fairly, with trustworthy locals watching. We can't take anything from the property until the debt is clearly paid off. Once the debt is covered, anything left over goes to the people responsible for handling the deceased's last wishes, as per their will. If the person didn't owe us any money, then all their movable property should be left for their family, making sure the spouse and children get their fair share. If a free man dies without a will, his belongings should be distributed by his close family and friends under the supervision of the local church. However, any debts that the deceased owed to others should be paid off first. Our sheriffs or other officials should not take someone's grain or other property unless they pay for it right away or have an agreement with the seller about payment. No sheriff should force a knight to pay money instead of doing castle guard duty. If a knight prefers to do the duty himself or send a reliable person in his place because he can't do it for a good reason, that's fine. Also, if we've called the knight to serve in the army, he won't have to worry about guard duty for the time he's serving with us. Our sheriffs, bailiffs, or anyone else should not take the horses or carts of a free person for transport duties unless they agree to it willingly. Neither we nor our bailiffs will use someone's woodland for building castles or for other purposes unless we have the permission of the person who owns the woodland. We will only hold on to the lands of those convicted of serious crimes for 1 year and 1 day. After that, the lands should be returned to the lords of the manors. From now on, all fish weirs, fishing traps or barriers in the water, must be completely removed from the Thames and the Medway and throughout all of England except along the sea coast. A court order shall no longer be issued to anyone if it might cause a free man to lose his rights over his property. There should be one standard measure for wine, beer and grain throughout our kingdom. The same goes for the width of dyed cloth, russet and halberget cloth. They should all be 2 yards within the borders. The same standardization should apply to weights as it does to measures. Nobody should have to pay to get a legal inquiry for cases that involve serious accusations like harm to a person's body. These inquiries should be freely available and not withheld. If you're renting land from us, but also have land from someone else because you're their knight, we won't take over the knight service land or its heir just because you're renting from us. Also, we won't take over your rented land unless your rent agreement includes doing knight service for us. And if you owe us a small service, like giving us knives or arrows, we won't take over any land or heirs you have from doing knight service for someone else. A bailiff can't put you on trial just based on what he says. He needs to bring actual witnesses to back up his claims. No free man should be arrested, imprisoned, stripped of his rights or property, exiled or harmed in any way. Nor will we act against him or send anyone to do so, except by the lawful judgment of his equals or by the law of the land. We will not sell, deny or delay the right to justice to anyone. All merchants should be safe and secure to leave and enter England, to stay and travel within it both by land and water for buying and selling, without unfair taxes following old and fair customs. This is except in wartime, and if they come from a country we are at war with. If such merchants are found in our country at the start of the war, they should be detained without harm to their bodies or properties until we or our Chief Justice decide how merchants from our land are being treated in the enemy country. If our merchants are safe there, theirs should be safe in our land. Everyone should be free to leave our kingdom and return safely and securely by land and water, remaining loyal to us, except in wartime or for a short period if it's for the common good of the kingdom. The exceptions are prisoners, outlaws according to the kingdom's laws, people from countries we are at war with, and merchants who are dealt with as previously described. If someone holds land from us that comes from an escheat, like Wallingford, Nottingham, Bologna, Lancaster, or other lands in our possession that are baronies, and dies, his heir should not pay us any more or give us any different service than they would have to a baron if the barony was under a baron's control. We will hold these lands in the same way the baron did. People who live outside royal forests should no longer have to appear before our forest justices on general summonses unless they're involved in a lawsuit or are guarantors for someone accused of forest law violations. We will appoint as justices, constables, sheriffs or bailiffs only those who know the law of the kingdom and are inclined to observe it well. If a baron has set up an abbey and has official documents or an old claim from the kings of England for it, he should be in charge of the abbey whenever it doesn't have a leader, as is his right. All forests that have been designated as royal forests during our reign shall be turned back to non-forest status. The same applies to riverbanks that have been protected during our time. In each county, 12 sworn knights chosen by honest people of that county will investigate any unfair practices related to forests, warrens, game preserves, their keepers, sheriffs and their officers, as well as riverbanks and their guardians. Within 40 days after the investigation, any bad practices found should be completely abolished, never to be brought back. We or our Chief Justice should know about this beforehand. We will immediately give back all hostages and charters that have been handed over to us by English people as a security for peace or loyal service. We will completely remove from office the relatives of Gerard de Athies and make sure they no longer hold any office in England. The same goes for Engelard de Cigogne, Peter, John and Andrew de Chancelis, John de Cigogne, Geoffrey de Martigny and his brothers, Philip Mark and his brothers, and Geoffrey's nephew, along with all their followers. Once peace is established, we'll send home all foreign soldiers, crossbowmen, servants, and paid fighters who came with weapons to cause trouble in the kingdom. If we've taken someone's property, castles, rights or freedoms without a fair trial by their peers, we'll give them back right away. If there's any dispute about this, the 25 barons mentioned in the peace agreement will sort it out. For property taken by King Henry our father or King Richard our brother, which we now control or others hold for us, we'll deal with it after the crusade, except for cases already in court before we took the cross. We'll make things right as soon as we return from our pilgrimage, or if we decide not to go. We'll handle issues about forests made by King Henry or King Richard, and lands we're looking after because of military service in the same way. When we're back from our pilgrimage or stay home, we'll quickly sort out any complaints about these. A person can't be arrested or jailed just because a woman says he's responsible for someone's death unless it's her husband. All fines and penalties we've imposed that are unjust or against the law of the land will be completely cancelled, or they can be re-evaluated by the judgment of the 25 barons mentioned in the peace agreement, or by most of them, along with the Archbishop of Canterbury if he can be there. If he can't, the matter should still go on without him. If any of these 25 barons have the same complaint, they'll step aside for this case, and others chosen and sworn in from the same group will take their place just for this judgment. If we've wrongfully taken land, freedoms, or other things from the Welsh without a legal trial by their peers in England or Wales, those things should be given back immediately. If there's a dispute, it should be sorted out in the border region by their peers, for English holdings according to English law, for Welsh holdings according to Welsh law, and for border holdings according to the law of the border region. The Welsh should do the same for us. For any Welsh people who are wrongfully dispossessed or removed without a legal trial by their peers, by King Henry our father, or King Richard our brother, which we now control or others hold for us, we'll take care of it after the crusade, except for cases that were already in court before we took the cross. When we return, or if we stay at home, we'll immediately provide full justice according to Welsh laws and the specific areas involved. We will immediately return Llywelyn's son and all the hostages from Wales, as well as the charters that were handed over to us for the sake of peace. We will treat King Alexander of Scotland regarding his sisters, the returning of hostages, their freedoms and their rights in the same way we do for our barons in England, unless it should be otherwise, according to the charters we have from his father William, the former King of Scotland. This will be decided by the judgment of his peers in our court. The freedoms and rules we've set out should be followed by everyone in our kingdom, whether they're clergy or not, in how they treat their people, just like we do with ours. To make sure that we stick to all the promises we've made for the good of our kingdom, and to settle our disagreements with our barons, we've agreed to a special guarantee. We allow the barons to choose 25 of their number to monitor and ensure that we keep the peace and freedoms we've granted in this charter. If we, our Chief Justice, our officials, or any of our servants break any part of this agreement, or if someone proves that we've broken it, 4 of these 25 barons can come to us or our Chief Justice, if we're out of the country, to complain and demand correction. If we don't fix the problem within 40 days, starting from when we or our Chief Justice were informed, the 25 barons, along with the support of the country, can act against us to enforce the agreement. They can seize castles, lands and possessions and use other ways to pressure us until we make things right, as long as our own person, the Queen and our children are safe. Once we correct the issue, things go back to normal. Anyone in the country can swear to obey and assist these 25 barons. We openly allow and encourage everyone to take this oath and will never forbid anyone from doing so. If anyone doesn't want to swear voluntarily, we will order them to swear to follow the baron's lead. If any of the 25 barons dies, leaves the country, or is otherwise unable to participate, the remaining barons will pick someone else to replace him. Their decision is final. If there's any disagreement among the 25, or if some can't or won't attend a meeting, whatever the majority decides will stand, as if all 25 agreed. These 25 barons must swear to uphold all these points and do everything they can to enforce them. We promise not to seek to change or undo these freedoms and rights, either ourselves or through someone else. If we do get something like that, it will be null and void, and we won't use it. We have completely forgiven and forgotten any bad feelings, grudges and resentments that arose between us and our people, both clerics and lay people, during the time of our disagreements. Furthermore, we have fully forgiven everyone for any wrongdoings committed because of these disagreements from Easter in the 16th year of our reign until the peace was re-established. This applies to clerics and lay people, and we have completely pardoned them as far as it concerns us. We have also provided official letters as proof of this security, and the concessions mentioned above, signed by the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Archbishop of Dublin, the other bishops mentioned, and Master Pandulph. Therefore, we want and firmly command that the English Church be free, and that people in our kingdom have and hold all the freedoms, rights and grants mentioned before, fully and completely, for them and their heirs, from us and our heirs, forever, in all things and places. It has been sworn, both on our part and on the part of the barons, that all these things will be faithfully and sincerely observed, witnessed by the above-mentioned and many others, given by our hand in the meadow called Runnymede, between Windsor and Staines, on the 15th day of June, in the 17th year of our reign. And that, dear listeners, marks the end of our journey back to the days of the Magna Carta. If you found yourself captivated by this tale of rebellion, rights, and the relentless pursuit of fairness, remember that history is filled with such incredible stories waiting to be told. If you find joy and value in these historical explorations and wish to journey further with us, do take a moment to look at the Patreon link in the description. Your support not only keeps the spirit of history alive, but also helps us create more content for fellow history enthusiasts. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Until next time, keep the curiosity burning and continue to explore the vast, fascinating world of history.